Hi, this is Ron Coleman. I'm wearing a tie today for my video because I'm going to be doing a series of videos about the work that I do, which people seem to find very interesting. In order to do that, first of all, I want to distinguish the lawyer videos from the political and the general and the personal and the whimsical videos. I mean, they'll still be the same insouciant. I have someone who I know always corrects my French, so I'm looking forward to that. Attitude. It'd still be me here in these videos, but I thought if I put on a tie, it would be a little bit more respectable, a little bit more respectful. It's as if I'm going to court. The difference is, I'm not. I'm making a video. I'm going to tell you about my adventures in the legal profession, which are actually very interesting. So much so that I was actually able to write this. You see, the Princeton Review, Pre-Law Companion. It came out during a period of time when I thought I might want to stop practicing law because I found it so unsatisfactory. Random House, 1996, okay? And it was about my experiences choosing to go to law school, working in the legal profession, working in very large firms and smaller firms, learning about the different specialties, learning about what sort of things makes a person a successful lawyer as opposed to a not successful lawyer. During that time, I also was the primary author of these two books, the American Association Guide to Consumer Law and the American Association Guide to Small Business. I wanted to actually, during that time, I wanted to be a professional writer. And of course, it made sense to me that I might try to write books first about law, because that's what I had something to say about while working on my sort of great American novel sort of thing. And that did make a certain amount of sense, but it didn't make much money. So I went back into the legal profession and actually eventually found my niche, and that's going to be the story. I don't know how many episodes it's going to take before I tell that story. But I know people are interested. And I also know that people might not recognize this. They might not recognize the fact that I have had an unusual, and I continue to have an unusual career. And also I have an unusual circle of light in the reflection of my glasses, right? That's the light ring. I'm going to have to come up with a solution for that. As it is, those who are very observant might pick up on the fact that I'm not wearing the glasses that you're used to seeing me in. The other ones need to be repaired. But I digress. It's the entire story of my professional life, actually. I'll start at the beginning. I do not come from a family of professionals. My mother and father both finished high school, did well. My father, in the New York schools in the 1950s, you could choose one of three tracks: trade or vocational, academic, and what was the other one? The other one was the one that he took. It was in between. It might have been, I don't remember what it was called, but academic was for people who were going to go to college, which was in those days not understood to be everyone, but only to be people who were particularly academically inclined. My father was a very bright man, but not someone who was academically inclined as such. In other words, he was normal. And he took the middle course, and after high school, he started working. In those days, with an American high school degree, you were rather well educated. You actually knew how to do quite a few things that you can't do. College graduates can't do today for most places. So, in any event, notwithstanding my family background, now, my mother didn't work until we were up and out of school, pretty much. Then she started, she had secretarial skills. She did a little substitute teaching. So I wasn't in a family where everyone was a lawyer or a doctor or anyone was. I mean, we had a couple of fairly distant relatives who were, but not people that I knew, or even people who were college graduates. Why am I telling you all this about me? Well, because I said I would start at the beginning, and I think also to help you understand, I think a lot of the things that I learned, the way I learned them, comes through the lens of how I learned them and who I am. And you may or may not appreciate that, and I hope you'll tell me in the comments if you think this is a good way for me to go about doing this. In any event, notwithstanding this background or lack of background, I was one of those people who, and I think you know the type, and it isn't necessarily a compliment, that people would say to me from a very early age, well, you're going to grow up to be a lawyer. What that meant was I was very verbal, perhaps tending toward the argumentative. Not in the sense of starting up with people, but just having opinions on things and having lots to say and being fairly decent at advocating a point of view. I was a big reader. Anyway, I did pretty well in school. I went to, after I moved from Brooklyn, we lived in East Windsor, New Jersey, and I graduated from Hightstown High School in 1981. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves here. I was near the top of my class. Class rankings were rather weird because of the way they accounted for AP courses. So my GPA was crazy high, but not because I was such a perfect student. In any event, it was high enough, together with the SAT, that to everyone's surprise, I was admitted to Princeton University. And I went there. And after I finished Princeton, I went to law school at Northwestern University in Chicago. The law school at Northwestern is not in Evanston with the rest of the university, but it is instead in the north loop of Chicago, or what they call the Golden Mile, just north, where those two things intersect, on Chicago Avenue, along Lake Michigan, where the medical school is. So I attended law school at Northwestern, and I'll tell you something interesting, and I think that this begins to tell you the story of my career. And again, this is not meant to be an autobiographical segment, but rather to shed light on what I learned about legal education and aptitude for the practice of law, or certain aspects of succeeding in the legal practice. At Princeton, I had not distinguished myself particularly academically. I did well enough to get into Northwestern, which luckily for me was in a rebuilding mode at the time and was looking to bring in Ivy Leaguers, and my LSAT scores were high enough that it was worth taking a chance on me, and they did. What I did with that chance was I ran the table. I did extremely well my first year. So that convinced me that I was probably pretty good at it, or that I would be pretty good at this. I ended up having a first-year summer associate opportunity in a New Jersey law firm, which was essentially just a litigation law firm. And the head of the firm said to me very quickly, we did a moot court. And after I did my moot court, my practice trial, he said, Ron, you're a litigator. You're cut out for this. This is what you're going to do. And I recognized that he was right. Now, this was a fateful moment. And if we say nothing else in the remaining couple of minutes of this segment, it's going to be that litigators are born and not made. Now, good litigators are made if they are born to be litigators. What's a litigator? A litigator is someone who goes to court. Now, the world is divided into two kinds of litigators fundamentally. I mean, there are many, many kinds. But fundamentally, there are two: trial lawyers and corporate litigators. Corporate litigators seldom try cases. They have many, many motions before judges. They appear in court often to argue these motions. They're involved in very large cases that involve a lot of discovery and a lot of paper or a lot of electronic paper pushing. But they're people who have retired from major law firms, considered to have been very successful litigators who have perhaps never tried a case, certainly in front of a jury. On the other pole are trial lawyers, people who are involved in much more down-to-earth cases, appear in court frequently, several times a year or more, are very, very comfortable in front of a jury. Those trial lawyers don't like the word litigators because to them that signals the corporate lawyer guys who don't really know their way around a courtroom. And I'm going to introduce myself to you in this series as a hybrid, someone who had the privilege of learning the corporate litigation skills in large law firms and doing extensive pre-trial procedural stuff in the federal courts, which are by and large, or it's historically at least, have been the more professional and more sophisticated courts. We'll talk about that during the series. But at the same time, I've tried a lot of cases, quite a few, for somebody who is in federal court as often as I have. And I've tried cases in front of juries and in front of judges. We'll talk about those differences. I've tried cases in the state court of New Jersey, never in the New York state courts. I've had many cases in those courts, but I haven't ever tried one. New York federal court, federal courts in Florida, federal courts in the Eastern District of New York, Southern District of New York, District of New Jersey, the District of Arizona, and I've done arbitration, which is wherever it is. It can be very much like a trial, but more like a trial that's in front of a judge, which is called a bench trial. That's our introduction. Again, I'm going to tell you about the legal profession. I'm going to tell you some of the exciting and fun and interesting things that I've learned going through many, many professional settings, representing a lot of different kinds of interesting clients. In civil litigation, I'll explain to you the difference between criminal litigation and civil litigation, which is a very substantial difference. We'll talk about the appellate practice and my experiences going through the administrative law process, the administrative appeal process, and the appeal, and then the en banc appeal, and then the Supreme Court appeal in the Slants case. What's going on in the profession, what other kinds of lawyers and litigators I have encountered. I think we can keep busy for a while, and the reason I'm doing this is because people really seem interested, and I don't think there's really a very good. I mean, actually, if the book is no longer in print, but frankly, you can still get it. You can still get it, and you can get it pretty cheap. I think it's a good introduction to those who are interested in this. And if you watch this series and you know someone who wants to go to law school, or you're considering going to law school yourself, or you've wondered what it would be like to go to law school, and I think you're going to find this to be very intriguing. And if you just like to see a guy with circles in his eyes staring into the camera, then you might want to keep watching also. But that's our first in our series of lawyer war stories, or lawyer life, or whatever I decide to call this series, the ones where I'm wearing my tie. And thanks for watching today. I'm in between calls. One's coming in soon, so we'll talk later.